Heart disease is the #1 killer of men and women. So February has been designated as American Heart Month. It's also the 5th annual Heart for PCOS campaign to help spread awareness of PCOS and heart disease. And this is because women with PCOS do have an increased risk of heart disease, and this is probably due to the high insulin levels and the chronic low-grade inflammation. So the good news is there's a lot that you can do to help decrease this risk. It's actually estimated that heart disease is 80% preventable through healthy diet and lifestyle. So what I want to do today is give you some quick tips to help you decrease your risk. I wrote a really long blog post on 22 heart-healthy diet and lifestyle ways to decrease the risk of heart disease. I'm not going to go through all of them right now. I just want to hit some of my most important points. So I want to start off by saying, I think a lot of women with PCOS aren't aware of this increased risk of heart disease. You probably have so many other things to think about. Maybe you've gained weight, or hair loss, hair growth, acne, troubles with fertility, and all that. You may not be thinking about heart disease. And what I see is a lot of women are consuming diets that may not be the most heart-healthy diet. You're probably not thinking about, am I getting in my fiber, my fruits and vegetables and all that. A lot of women are really focused on cutting calories, cutting carbs, and the diets aren't that heart healthy. So what's wrong with the typical diet? The average person does not consume enough fruits and vegetables. Actually, 80% of people don't consume enough fruits and vegetables. The average person does not consume enough fiber, consumes too much sodium, and too many refined or processed carbohydrates. So what are some tips? What are some things that we should be doing? So let's start with the diet part of it. The first tip I would say is to try to get in more vegetables and some fruit. I know a lot of women are trying to limit carbs, but that doesn't mean you can't have any fruit. Maybe just do it in moderation, but to really get those vegetables in. And this is important because vegetables have vitamins, mineral, fiber, antioxidants, and these are all things that can help keep your blood vessels healthy. It can help lower cholesterol. So find a way to get in the vegetables and a couple servings of fruit a day. The second tip I would have is to get in more fiber. And again, a lot of us don't think about fiber. The average person takes in 15 grams of fiber a day, where the goal is actually 25 grams or more. And fiber does a lot of really important things in the body. It can actually help to lower cholesterol. It helps to slow the rise and the fall of blood sugar and insulin, can keep you feeling full longer, helps with weight control, and helps improve the health of your gut microbiome, which is super important. So tips to get more fiber in: get in some ground flax seeds, some chia seeds, have more legumes, beans, get in your vegetables, get in some high fiber fruits, and get in some whole grains. My next tip would be to choose healthy fats. Now, this is like a super controversial area right now. Years we were told don't eat eggs. Now we're saying you can eat eggs. We've been told not to eat saturated fat. Now some people are saying, well, maybe it's not so bad. Kind of the line I take on this is like, we know some fats are healthy. Like we know extra virgin olive oil, avocado, nuts, and seeds. Definitely get those kind of fats in. Fats are actually really good for you. The Mediterranean diet is pretty high in fat. It's like 40% fat, but it's those kinds of fats. And studies have shown that can actually help decrease risk of heart disease. Be careful with like the refined oils. I'm not a huge fan of some of those like processed vegetable oils. Saturated fat, I feel like it is okay in moderation. Just don't go crazy overboard with it like some of the keto diets, but try and get in mainly the healthy fats. My next tip is to limit added sugar. And I think with PCOS, most of us have this down pretty good. We're not loading our foods up with sugar, but it does sneak into a lot of foods. Even things like, coconut sugar or agave, which people think are healthier, it still is an added sugar. And that causes inflammation, it raises triglycerides, and studies have shown it does increase risk of heart disease. My next tip is to get a couple of servings of fatty fish into your diet a week. Fatty fish contains omega-3 fats. It helps decrease inflammation. It helps to lower triglycerides. And these are all really important areas for women with PCOS. If you don't eat fish, consider taking a fish oil supplement. You can also get vegan type of omega-3 supplements if you follow a plant-based diet. My next tip is to increase your intake of whole grains. Now, I know this is a touchy subject because a lot of women with PCOS want to do a low-carb diet, which is fine, but don't be totally carb phobic. Whole grains have been shown to decrease risk of stroke by 30%, decrease risk of heart disease by 25%, and decrease risk of diabetes by 30%. They actually help lower blood pressure as well. So even if you have maybe even 2 servings a day of quinoa or brown rice or some kind of whole grain bread or something, but don't be totally carb phobic when it comes to whole grains. My next tip is to, I'm looking at my cheat notes here, is to throw some foods in with like lots of antioxidants, like green tea, loaded with antioxidants, helps keep your blood vessels healthy. And then some fun foods like some red wine and chocolate. Those are my favorites. In moderation, they have health benefits, so put some of that stuff in. So those are just some of my nutrition tips. I have a lot more. And when it comes to the lifestyle tips, those are just as important, and I think a lot of us might forget that, but exercise is a given. We know that. You want to get in ideally a half an hour a day of some kind of exercise as well as some weight training. That's going to help keep your heart strong. Sleep is really important. Inadequate sleep can increase risk of heart disease, stress management, and less sitting time. A lot of us sit like me for many hours at a time. You want to get up and move, and that helps to decrease risk of heart disease. So go to my blog on my website, Martha McKittrick Nutrition, and I did a really long blog post on 22 ways to decrease risk of heart disease with diet and lifestyle. You'll get lots of tips. Check out my Instagram feed at Martha McKittrick RD. I'll be putting lots of heart healthy tips on there. I would love to hear any questions that you have. But bottom line, 80% of heart disease is preventable. Women with PCOS do have an increased risk of heart disease. So think about these tips. I think the most important tips for me is getting in the vegetables and getting in more fiber, and just making your diet be as balanced as it can. Let me know if you have any questions.